All right, we're going to get out the good old Hornady reloading book. Let's take a peek at what cartridge we're going to be comparing today. This cartridge comparison video is brought to you by one of the viewers of my channel that specifically asked for this. So if you guys have a cartridge you want to see compared, let me know in below. Today we're comparing the 6.5 PRC to the 270 WSM. I think you guys are going to be surprised at how similar these are and which one actually comes out on top. Hope you enjoyed the video. Now, we are going to be using the handbook to look at the case dimensions and the case for two reasons. Number one, I have a troll that views a lot of my videos and he hates it when I use the reloading books. But the actual reason is that my dummy round 6.5 PRC, I can't find it. It's missing. So if you see it, please contact me. A brief little history of the 6.5 PRC. Development started around 2013, and it was officially released in 2018 from Hornady. It is basically a 375 Ruger case shortened to fit a short action. So it's a short, fat case that provides pretty good velocities, and it's extremely accurate. No doubt about that. Yes, the 270 WSM. Introduced in 2001, and the parent case is 300 WSM. This one's an interesting cartridge. It has some rabid, loyal fans. The only problem is they're very small in number. The 270 WSM gives you about a 200 feet per second advantage over the classic 270 Winchester in a short action. Let's take a look at the potential according to Hornady. What kind of velocities you can get. This one's going to be with a 24-inch barrel. 130 grain at 3,200. I know you can get up to 3,300. Let's see, a 140 grain at 3,100. Hornady seems a little off, and then a 150 grain at 3,000. So according to Hornady, there's only about 100 feet per second advantage going from 270 WSM from a 270 Winchester. I don't really trust that, and I'm going to show you in GRT why. Now let's take a quick look at the 6.5 PRC low data. Now, interesting, they're using a 26-inch barrel. I wonder why, Hornady. Okay, let's look. Yeah, I don't know anyone shooting 120 grains, but they're going 3350, 130, 135 grain at 3,200, a 140 grain at 3,150. That's pretty quick. And finally, let's look, 150-ish. Yeah, we'll say that. 3,050. It's pretty darn good performance, but that's with a 26-inch barrel. And we are going to double check that with GRT to see what it says with 24 and a 26-inch barrel. But pretty darn good performance from this little 6.5 PRC case. I wanted to show you the GRT info because I think it's a little bit more of an accurate representation of what you can actually get in your specific rifle. A lot of it has to do with because I can put in the specific details of my rifle, like the barrel length, the case volume, the cartridge overall length, and then the bullet and the specific powder and the load. So what we're using here is Vitavori N565 for 6.5 PRC. We're going to be shooting a 142 grain AccuBond long range. We're going to try to keep things at 65,000 PSI to see what the true max is. And this is about as fast as I can get with powders you can get. Now, bear in mind, N565 is pretty close to Reloader 26. But we're looking at probably around 3,075 feet per second with a 24-inch barrel. Most 6.5 PRCs are going to top out with a 24-inch barrel. But what happens if we put in a 26? Let's do it real quick. We're 3,140, probably 3,150, just like Hornady said with their 26-inch barrel. So that's nice to know. Now we're going to see what GRT says about the 270 WSM with a 24-inch barrel, with the 150 grain AccuBond long range. Now the BC is kind of close with what we did with the 6.5 PRC. It's not going to be exactly perfect with it, but it's about as close as I can try to get. So we're using, well, funny enough, this is the exact same powder. I was able to get the most velocity with Vitavori N565 with a 270 WSM. And with a 24-inch barrel, we're getting a 150 grain at 3164 feet per second. Now let's go ahead and see what we get with a 26-inch barrel. We're up to 3,232 feet per second with a 150 grain. That's moving. Now let's check out the ballistics for the 6.5 PRC. This is going to be at sea level, again with that 142 ABLR, with a velocity of 3,075 feet per second from a 24-inch barrel, and the energy 2982. The recoil with a 9-pound gun with this load is 19. Let's take this out to 400 yards. The bullet is going 2,485 feet per second. Your energy mid 1,900 foot-pounds. 21.9 inches of drop. Now let's just go 100 more yards. 500, 2349, 1,740 foot-pounds of energy. 39.7 inches of drop. And then, of course, what's more important than the drop is the wind drift at 500 yards and a 10-mile-per-hour wind. In MOA, that's 2.38. Let's look at the 270 WSM with a 150 grain AccuBond long range. Muzzle velocity of 3160. Your energy 3,326 foot-pounds, so almost 400 more foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. With that more velocity and a heavier bullet, you are going to get a little bit more recoil in that same 9-pound configuration. Out to 400 yards, the bullet's going 25-27 feet per second, 3,127 foot-pounds, 20.7 inches of drop. So you have a little bit less drop in the 270 WSM to 400. Let's take this out to 500. The bullet's going 2382, and you have 1,890 foot-pounds. So a little over 100 foot-pound advantage for the 270 WSM. And about a 2-inch difference at 500. Oh, it is a little flatter. But in the wind drift category, it is just a tad bit worse. But honestly, you're probably not going to notice a difference. Now, I know what a few of you are going to say. Why, Reloading Weatherby, did you only compare the 270 WSM to the 6.5 PRC out to 500 yards? It's probably because that's where the 270 WSM is still competing with it. You're probably thinking 6.5 PRC demolishes 270 WSM once you get out to 1,000 yards. Well, let's take a look. You've already know the numbers for that 270 WSM. We're going to be in mils for the superior mil guys. Here you go. At 500, 2.1 mils, and then in a wind, 0.7 mils. 10-mile-per-hour wind. Out to 1,000. Bullets going 1,729 feet per second, 996 foot-pounds of energy, 6.4 mils to 1,000. That's really good. And in the wind, 1.65 mils. Not too shabby. Let's take a look at the 6.5 PRC. Let's just look at 500. 2.2 mils compared to 2.1, and 0.69, so just the slightest advantage in wind at 500 for the 6.5 PRC. But at 1,000, the bullet's going a tad bit faster, 1734, but the 270 WSM still has almost 50 more foot-pounds of energy. But really, they're about the same. A little bit more drop in the 6.5 PRC, 6.69, but we're getting a little bit more advantage with the 6.5 PRC with the higher BC bullet in the wind, 1.3 versus 1.65. All right, in closing, 270 WSM is quite the cartridge. The problem is, doesn't matter. Almost a dead cartridge. Very few people have them. Very few people really care. That's kind of the problem with the 270 WSM. The 270 WSM is more powerful. It has better ballistics with traditional hunting distances out to 500 yards. If you're a reloader, this is such a good cartridge, and I know why it has a cult-like following. But for the rest of everybody, yeah, I understand why you would get a 6.5 PRC. Especially for long distance shooting, this does have a little bit of an advantage over the 270 WSM. Plus all of the factory ammo options. It's just a darn good little cartridge. I can see why so many people gravitate towards it.